حياكم الله بفقرتنا المعتادة ليالي ركان. اليوم معنا ضيف استثنائي في عالم الاستثمار الرياضي وكرة القدم، شخصية لها بصمة واضحة وطموح كبير في تطوير الأندية. معنا اليوم مستر بن هاربورغ.
Hi. Hi, fine. And you? Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. Come on. His name طحينة.
We say in English tahine as well.
وش الطحينة بالإنجليزي؟ طحينة؟
Tahine.
حمص.
Tabbouleh. We still eat.
يعني عندهم حمص وتبولة وكل شيء. Take more.
More?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because no sleep today.
Yeah. Actually, my schedule today until like 3 a.m. You guys are crazy. No.
Good or no?
Very good.
قهوة.
Very nice. Yeah.
Like the Arabic coffee or American coffee?
No. I like the Arabic.
Sure.
Yeah. It's amazing.
أول سؤال اليوم أنا بسأل مستر بن سؤال عن من أنت قبل نادي الخلود؟
I hope I'm still who I was before and now, but I'm a person who is very passionate for football, but unfortunately not a player, and so someone who is in my day job interested in business, interested in geopolitics, technology investing, but my night job and my passion is football.
هل لو عرض عليك ضعف المبلغ اللي أنت اشتريت فيه نادي الخلود هل ستبيع النادي فوراً؟
Did you sell it? No. I've fallen in love with obviously the city, with these people. We've put our blood into getting to where we are today. A lot of pain. I mean, we're working on this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are no days off, and you know, it's something we think has a very long way to go. And I think this club is worth much more than we paid for it, or will be worth much more. And we're just at the very beginning of a long journey. So just like you wouldn't want to sell your Tesla stock, you know, 20 years or 15 years ago, you know, for me, our objective is to build this into really something significant, not for financial reasons, of course, but for legacy, for the club. So one, I don't need the money and I don't want to sell the club anyway, but two, we are just at the very beginning.
لو جتك ميزانية مفتوحة وقالوا لك اختار أي لاعب عالمي نجيبه لنادي الخلود، من اللاعب اللي بتختاره؟
You know, so our system is that we use data science to select our players. And what that means is that almost without exception, we're not going to be taking people that have a big name. We're taking people that our system tells us are very strong players. And most of the time, they're people you would have never heard of, right? No one had heard of Ramiro Enrique, you know, before this season started. And now he's scored 18 goals across all competitions. So if we're doing our job, we're finding those kind of players. Of course, there are many players in the world who have a very high rating in our system, but are also very expensive. But there are some that I really like for instance, Cherki at Manchester City. I like, you know, I thought he was a bargain for what they paid for him from his French club because of, you know, that club needed money. So there are these players that I like their touch, the crispness of the balls that they hit. But at the end of the day, we have to be very unemotional and not be swayed by number of goals, by spectacular plays, and by the consistent performance, by the XG they create, by what our data tells us. And so the players that we're enamored with are the ones that we can buy for a very low price, but then we can hopefully one day sell for a lot more money. And it's not a big player where I spend a lot of money, but never, you know, he's already hit his ceiling on valuation. There's nowhere to go from there.
في معلومة إنه كنت مستشار في البنك الأهلي عام 2006. هل هي صحيحة أو لا؟
Consultant. Yeah. So in 2007, I came to Saudi Arabia for the first time. I was working for a global consulting firm, but our client was Bank Al Ahly. So I lived for a year in Jeddah and worked inside their offices for a year.
كل الناس تعرف الحين إنه مستر بن مستثمر أجنبي جاء لنادي الخلود للسنوات هذه. يعني ما في أحد يعرف أنك كنت تشتغل من عام 2006 مثلا مستشار في البنك الأهلي.
Yeah, 2000. So I've seen this amazing transition in Saudi Arabia of the country, of the people, of the economy. It's easy to show up today in Saudi Arabia and already see all the progress, the beautiful infrastructure, but I've seen the whole journey. So no, I've been, as I say, investing and working in the kingdom for almost 20 years now.
هل بيجي يوم من الأيام نشوف أي لاعب سعودي محترف فريقك الآخر قادش؟
Yeah, it's absolutely essential that we send our players from our club and of course other clubs around the kingdom to Europe still to train. You see what's happening right now when your best players are playing at the top of the French league and other things. I still think Europe is the best training ground to instill in our players discipline, technical skills, everything from eating, sleeping, training. And so we had already begun the process of looking at which players we can send from Al Khulud to Qadish. And Qadish has also, like Al Khulud has junior teams and a full academy as well as a B team that's playing right now in the 5th tier of Spanish football. So we've got different pieces that we can put to play and different levels that we can send Saudi players, but we would love to have Saudi players playing in Qadish. And of course we want Qadish to get promoted back up to La Liga so they can play La Liga. But the intention is to bring Saudi players there. And not as many players from, say, Cadiz here. I think we can bring players from around the world here. And our budget at Al Khulud actually is bigger than Cadiz. So we should be aiming for actually a better tier of player than are playing at Cadiz, but for training our Saudi players.
هل تقدر تعطيني اسم معين، لاعب معين انك ممكن انك تجيبه قادش؟
I would love to send someone like Abdulaziz Aliwa to Cadiz, right? Someone like that, because he's got such great talent. He's young, he's still raw, and he's a little too skinny. I want him to get bigger, stronger, more tougher, when he's because otherwise people are just going to throw him around a little bit. And so he's the type of a player where if we could send him to Europe rather than selling him to one of the big clubs as people kind of expect would happen, that would be an amazing long-term investment in him. And we as been publicly announced, we re-signed him to a longer-term contract this season because we think so highly of his growth trajectory. And so that gives us more time to spend with him, to give him more minutes, and maybe to send him to Europe if we can figure it out.
أنت مستثمر أجنبي الآن في الدوري السعودي. أبي بصراحة وش أكبر مشكلة تشوفها موجودة بالدوري السعودي بحيث أن الدوري السعودي يكون من أفضل 5 دوريات في العالم؟
Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. It's a good question. There's several problems. I think one of the biggest problems is just we are a league that today all of our resources come from the same places, right? From the Ministry of Sport, from the the TV contract. So very few teams in our league are generating their own independent revenue. But then you've got this huge disparity in resources where just a few clubs at the top have all the money and everyone else has a very low amount. And so, if you look at the data today, actually, there's only 3 clubs mathematically that have anything to play for this season, aside from relegation, but okay. There's only 3 clubs. So every other club below Qadisiyah has a 0% chance of making it into the top 4 by the end of the season.
Yeah.
So we're 30% of the way through the season, or we were when we first did this math, and 70% of the league has nothing to play for. And they're not putting up good matches against the big clubs. And so it's very unhealthy for a league when you have a couple clubs at the top with all the resources and everyone else is so resource constrained. There's guys that are literally sitting on the bench at Al Hilal who are only playing in their Asian Cup matches right now because there's no room for them in the main team, the league team, whose individual transfer fee was 4 times bigger than our entire club's budget. So that's an unhealthy dynamic. And then that's being compounded by the fact that because you're seeing overspending by what I would call kind of these rich 6 clubs, and that's, or let's call them soon to be the rich 8. So it's the PIF 4 clubs.
Yes.
It's Qadisiyah, it's Neom, and then now Diriyah and Alula.
Yes.
Because of the way that they're spending, they create huge inflation in the market for all of us. So now when I go to Europe and I try to bring a player to Al Khaloud, he says, you need to pay me 5 times my current salary in order for me to come to Al Khaloud. So that's created inflation on this side. And then on the Saudi side, we face the same problem with Saudi players. We had a situation that I've never talked about publicly where during this winter transfer window, we tried to sign one Saudi young player, not even playing in the SPL. We offer him 750,000 SAR to buy him from his club. So less than 1 million SAR. One of those rich 8 clubs I just told you about gave 6 million SAR to buy the player. And that's not one of the big, I'll give you a hint, it's not one of the big 4 clubs. And so when you have a dynamic like that with these crazy costs, that means that not only is the league creating this huge disparity where you don't have good competition, but the league is not financially sustainable because everyone is burning huge amounts of money to stay alive in the league, but there's no new source of revenue. And so I would equate it to like in an auction, when you go to buy something in an auction, sometimes people cheat in the auction, right? And someone who actually owns the painting, they're bidding on it and they're driving up the price of at the auction so that ultimately the guy that does buy it, he's losing a lot of money, but he wasn't actually competing against a real true bidder. He was kind of competing against the house. We have a similar dynamic here where we are bidding against each other, but then everyone's money is being burned along the way. This is not a situation like in Spain. Real Madrid has a much higher budget than I do, but that's okay because Real Madrid makes a lot of money and they make it through an amazing game day experience. I think they make more money match day than any other club in the league or in all of football, I think. They do incredible on merchandising and TV contract, whatever. So it can be justified economically. We are all drawing on the same pool of capital here, and because we're all getting such unequal dispersion of it, it makes it very hard for us as a smaller team to compete. And then when we do have one injury, you don't have 3 players sitting behind that player to backfill him. Or if we had a very tough schedule this season where all the matches are like 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. We don't have the depth of squad to keep our people healthy during that period. And so it creates a very challenging competitive environment. It creates a very challenging financial environment, which means I fear for other people that would come to buy clubs in this league because they will probably go bankrupt very quickly because of this vicious cycle of player inflation.
طيب هل تقدر تذكر لي مين اسم اللاعب اللي كنتوا مثلا تفاوضونه ب 750 فجأة راح النادي ب 6 مليون؟ وإيش الحل اللي ممكن يحل هذه المشكلة؟
I wouldn't name the player, but he was a player in the yellow league. Not even, in the yellow league. Okay.
الدرجة الأولى.
The challenge with so the solution is, I think we need to reconsider these new clubs that have been created that don't have fan bases. The ones the names, people like Neom, and we played a match today, this season against Neom when there was maybe 100 fans in the audience. This team has a huge amount of resources that are coming out of the same pool as us. So I think we need to reevaluate maybe some of these clubs and understand if that's a good use of resources, if those resources could be better utilized by all clubs. I think the second thing is to create some kind of a salary cap system. I love how the NFL is played because it's really a test of skill. It's not a test of spending. Every club has the exact same amount of money and they do what they're best with that. And if they say, I need to have a very good goalkeeper and maybe strong defense, but I don't have as much money to spend on offense, and you kind of move the pieces around the chessboard. I like that. I like it much better to be skill-based than just who can burn the most money. So I think we've got to find a way to put some kind of financial fair play in place or some kind of salary cap, and particularly around Saudi players. Actually, the Saudi players on a kind of cost per value basis are even more expensive than the international players, as you know. And so we've got to find a way to both cap the cost of salary players or at the very least redistribute talent around the league in a more fair way. So one of our proposals to the league was maybe we could create a draft where we say every season the top 20 players coming from U21 league, they get allocated evenly across the league. Because right now we've got a situation where they all end up stockpiled at a club like in the Big Four or something like that, because they can afford to spend as much money as they want and keep them there. There's no limit, right? And they put them on their U21 team, or they put them on, younger teams. So I think that we need to find ways to make sure that cost has a ceiling, and then to make sure that talent is evenly distributed across the league. And again, I have to go back to the number one financial outcome sport in the world is the NFL. It's not the EPL in England. The NFL is 1,000 times bigger. And that's because they have a very strong league where everyone is at a similar level. Everyone has the same budget. The talent is distributed through a draft. So you have teams that are all fighting on the same uneven, and it creates a really great product. Having a team that should be playing in U21s playing against a team that's playing in Champions League doesn't make sense.